Thank you. Thank you all. And I must apologize initially because I've just recovered from a sinus infection, so I may cough a few times, but apologies for that. Okay, so first thing I want to mention is disruptions. We all know about disruptions. We all know that they've been coming, and they're becoming thick and fast. And the one thing that we can depend on is that disruption will continue to come. Okay, disruptions will continue to come. That's one of the things that we can plan for them. We know that disruptions are going to continue. So how do we address those disruptions? Well, one of the ways is to ensure that your supply chain is more resilient. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to try to explain what resilience means from a supply chain perspective in the context of what IDC has to say, and then what we have to say from an Oracle perspective. So IDC did a survey last year, 2022, where they interviewed a number of customers. And one of the things that we noticed, or they noticed, is that 80% of those customers have projects to improve visibility, and 90% have projects to improve agility. So nice words, agility and visibility, but again, what does that mean? So Simon Ellis from IDC said that, in his opinion, in order to have a resilient supply chain, you need to have both agility and visibility to get to resilience. So he said it's not enough just to see. So it's not enough just to have visibility in terms of what is my inventory position. You need to be able to act, but you need to be able to understand how and where to act. And again, nice words, but what does that really mean? So in his opinion, as he said, visibility and agility equals resilience. So I'm going to try to answer that question by answering what our customers are seeing or asking us. So if I look at when we are speaking to customers who are interested in supply chain planning from Oracle, this is what we're seeing is where's my stuff? Essentially, that's the big question is, where's my stuff? When is it going to arrive? And what can I do to make sure that it actually arrives? Now, it's a very, very difficult thing to do because you need to have a couple of things in place. One of them is, in order to have visibility, I need to link multiple nodes of my supply chain together. So I need to pull data from multiple places within my supply chain. And I need to do it quickly and effectively, because if I don't do it quickly, then the inventory position changes again. I also need to have the ability to do things like exceptions, and I need to have the ability to do things like simulations and scenario planning. These are all things that I need to be able to do in order to answer some of those questions about where's my stuff. Because if I don't have any exceptions in place, I don't get alerted when my stuff is not going to be there on time to begin with. I then need to have the ability to visualize this, and this is where we come to the question of being able to see. So inventory position, do I need to just see my inventory position, or do I need to take it a step further and actually understand what does that mean from a component perspective, a resource perspective? What does my supply chain actually look like? And I need to have this ability to be agile, to change quickly. And this is where I'm going to be going into the detect, decide, and execute. So if we were to come to detect, decide, and execute, if we come back to the question that Simon, or the statement that Simon made, I need to be able to see. It's not enough just to see, I need to be able to act. Not enough just to act, I need to be able to see how and where to act. So if we were to come to from a detection perspective, if I take it in the context of visibility and agility, I need to be able to collate all my data. I then need to have from a visibility perspective, I need to be able to see all this data. And then from an agility perspective, I need to be able to have detection processes in place to tell me exactly when what is going to be delayed and when it's going to be delayed and what is going to be the impact on my customer. From a decide perspective, I need to have the flexibility, so visibility and agility again, to also understand alternatives, so alternative items, alternative components, alternative resources, alternative bill of materials, alternative work definitions, all these things, and the ability to simulate those so that I can effectively decide on what I need to do once I've detected the issue. And then I need to very effectively execute. And again, from a visibility and agility perspective, I need to be able to quickly execute my plan that I've now just decided on. And again, that is not a very, very easy thing to do, because converting from plan to execution, as we know, is not a very, very simple thing. So again, each of these components have a visibility and agility perspective in different forms. So now that I know what it is that I need to do, let's look at what is out there. And if I start with the concept of not necessarily a command center concept, but more a control tower. Control tower is not a new concept. It's been around for many, many years. But most of the control towers out there are mainly focused on visualization. So it's understanding the C part that Simon was talking about. I can see my inventory position, but it doesn't help me because I don't know how that is impacting my supply chain. So if I look at the next generation of control towers, it's really more allowing the ability to detect supply chain processes, so detect what the issue is, adding some risk elements to it, but it's lacking the ability to decide, to simulate an answer, and then to execute that. And that is the solution that I was wanting to talk about today, which is around this command center concept. So I'll have a short video at the end just to go into a bit more detail, but it's around the ability to monitor, identify opportunities, and then execute those using a command center concept. So what is command center? It's built on a couple of points. One of them is around consumable data. So it's, as I mentioned earlier, you need to be able to consolidate large portions of data, but you also need to consume it. It doesn't really matter if you can just bring this data together. It must be in a usable format. I then need to have what we're referring to as predefined use cases. Now, I'll go into a bit more detail about these use cases, but think of them as guides, protocols of what to do if a particular event happens. I need to have a quick response with analytics, and then I need to have a continuous improvement process which allows automation. So I can have a feedback loop after the process is ended so that I know what to do next time, some automation in place. Now, I spoke about consumable data, and the question is, how can this data be consumable? Well, as Oracle, we have the underlying database, we have the underlying data structure. So we can actually extract data from all of our internal data points. We understand the table structure, we understand what row the data is in, so we understand what data can be sourced from where, and this comes across from supply chain planning, from supply chain execution, from transportation management, from procurement. We know how to collate all that data together because we have all the data, but we also have the ability to extend using external data. So things like Everstream. So if we had to take Everstream, for example, we can pull data from Everstream related to port congestion or weather patterns in terms of things that could impact our supply chain. So if I look at the various use cases, and I won't go into detail about all of them because we'll be here all day then, but I will have a bit of a focus around the demand risk management and the manufacturing execution. But essentially, what we're talking about here is, and if I relate it back to one of the chief challenges we have within supply chains right now is our workforce, our supply chain planners themselves. There's a challenge we have now with a high turnover of these individuals, and we have really, really complex supply chains. What ends up happening is if you have a complex system, complex supply chain, it is a steep learning curve. So there's a lot of time lost with this. So essentially what we can see these also as almost protocols or use cases and guides that the teams using them, the planners actually using them, can actually follow a particular guide in terms of what to do if I have demand at risk, what to do if I have constraints in manufacturing or new product introduction or lead time issues. These are all things that we can actually resolve. Now coming back to the use cases, if we were to start with demand at risk, it's essentially about understanding I have a shipment delay, I have a demand that has an unusual spike in demand. What do I need to do? I need to detect that issue initially. Then we come back to decide what we can do about it, and then looking for alternatives and how to prioritize alternatives as well. And essentially, what we do is that we take that particular demand at risk and we tie it into the various products that we have at our disposal. So we have Oracle Integration Cloud, we have supply chain planning, we have logistics, and we have supply chain fusion analytics sitting on top of that. So we're able to pull data from all of these systems and represent it within Fusion Analytics, but then also drill down to the various applications to quickly resolve those. And that's the demand at risk. If we take manufacturing constraints, here we're talking about using digital twins, if you may, where I have a digital twin within the factory, where if that particular digital twin has indicated that there's going to be a maintenance issue, so using machine learning based on things like temperature and rate of use, it can determine when that resource is likely to fail. And if we have that resource within our plan, using a machine learning to actually alert the planner that that particular resource is likely, as a high likelihood of failure, and then the ability to very, very quickly use an alternative, so anticipate future downtime, the ability to very, very quickly simulate alternatives, and then come up with the ability to modify that and execute those changes. If I jump to, I won't go into the full detail on the others, but multi-tier network visibility and response. This is using our collaboration platform where we can actually get visibility in terms of our tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 suppliers, because one of the challenges, and I mentioned it in my last presentation, that a lot of the risk within supply chains is sitting with tier 2, tier 3, and even tier 1. And unfortunately, most supply chains are looking very much internally, so they don't even have the visibility in terms of tier 1, tier 2, in terms of commitments of is my tier 1 and tier 2 supplier able to commit? What is their inventory position currently? New product introduction, again, using machine learning capabilities to determine attributes of existing products and future products, using it to analyze all of my install base and understand if I launch a particular new product, when should I launch it? What is the launch forecast going to be? Revenue risk management, again, using financial planning metrics to understand from a from a planning perspective, what should my growth rate be long term? How does my budget from my financial planning perspective look like in my sales and operation planning process? And then also lastly, lead time variability, using machine learning to understand disruptions in my lead time, because one of the things that we know from disruptions is that the lead time is no longer stable. So if you're planning based on lead times and those lead times are not accurate, your plan is no longer accurate either. So again, using machine learning to analyze your past lead times and then using prediction to calculate what the correct lead time should be, incorporating that into your plan. Just an example of the manufacturing constraints which I took you through now. In this case, is using, again, Oracle integration, cloud planning, supply chain execution, and analytics. Just in terms of how everything fits together. So from a supply chain planning perspective, the modules that we use within supply chain planning is demand, supply planning, sales and operation planning, and then the collaboration and visibility, but linking that through to our supply chain execution capabilities as well. Okay, so I'm going to take you through a demonstration quickly, and I'm expecting it to actually play automatically, which it should do. There we go. Okay, so what we're seeing here is an overview within Fusion Analytics of demand at risk, and I can see my total demand at risk, but I have the ability to drill down very, very quickly into my plan. And in this case, I'm seeing an initial plan of record, which was the plan before the disruption occurred. And I can see here that I had a target of around 600K demand at risk, and at the time it was 560, so it was okay. But an event has happened, and now my demand at risk has climbed to above plan. So what I can now do is drill down to see very, very quickly my exceptions, the demand at risk value, information around peak inventory, but I can drill down from here to see exactly which exceptions, which items are being impacted here, and what exceptions are. So if we have a look at the demand at risk value, I can now drill straight down to the item, and I can see it's one item causing all of that. And if you from here drill down to there, I can now see the individual exceptions that are being impacted. So I can see that there's demand at risk, there's late supply, orders need to be rescheduled. A lot of it is related to insufficient lead time, but there are also orders pegged to late supply. So from here, what I can do is drill directly into our transportation management system. So I can see immediately the order that is being impacted, and I can see the route that is following, and I can see exactly what is causing that delay. Now, in this example, it was already an air freight, but if the delay was going to be caused and I already was using rail or road, I could potentially at that point alternate to use air. Now, in this case, I've drilled down immediately down to see the orders. And from here, what I can do is look at the orders that are being impacted. And this is backlog management. So the backlog, which is one of the big challenges that most companies have at the moment, is I've got a backlog, how do I resolve this? So backlog management gives me the ability to very, very quickly analyze using rules, so rules-based engine to understand what orders are delivering the highest revenue and what orders are delivering or are the most late. At this point, I can now quickly adjust that and understand, well, to see now that I've made that update, I can now come and review at an aggregate level what those changes have meant to my plan. In this case, I've now got an optimized plan where I'm now not quite on where I need it to be, but based on those adjustments, I can see that I'm now still below my target. Okay, so that was a very, very quick overview of this. If you want, we can go into a lot more detail. There are videos on demand at risk and one of the other use cases publicly available. So anyone who wants to see those, we've already done some external webinars. We're going to continue to do external webinars throughout the year on all of those use cases. I just want to also mention those use cases that we were mentioning are flexible and can grow and change as needed. Okay.